Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Haskincast podcast, or if you're listening to it at some other future time and you're just binging on this podcast, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I hope you guys are doing great. It is the middle-ish of February, just past Valentine's Day, and it is freezing here in Vegas. In fact, Summerlin, which is about a half hour from me, has gotten snow twice this year. Which is pretty rare. In fact, the video that I saw this morning of last night's weather down there looked like I was back in Michigan or Colorado. Over here where I am, though, it's just been very overcast and the wind has been a bit bitey, as they say. It's interesting because I grew up in Michigan and lived in Colorado for a number of years, so I'm used to the cold. But your body, wherever you live, gets acclimated to where you live. And I think it was a good year from the time that I moved from Colorado to Arizona that it took me to really acclimate to those extremely high temperatures. And of course, now because I've lived in this part of the country for so many years, let's see, I think I finally left Colorado for the last time in January of 2002, I think it was. And so with the exception of the few months that I spent in LA, I've been either in Arizona or Nevada, which have very similar temperature extremes. So when it gets cold, like my friends from Canada or back east could come out here and just be out in shorts and a t-shirt and be very warm. I would be freezing with, two jackets, a hat, a hoodie, and gloves and whatever on. So it's been a little bit extreme for us as of late. We've had a lot of rain, but it's nice because it's moody, and in Arizona you have mostly blue skies. So at least here we have some weather and clouds and wind and some stuff to make it a little more interesting. And so that's been interesting to manage on top of the regular daily routine life. And I've been posting some pictures on my Facebook page, adding some stuff to my weather albums because I think clouds are really kind of fascinating. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about our guest, Tamara McDaniel, who I've known since, I want to say it was around the summer of 2007. Somewhere around there, I think, when we did our first 48-hour film challenge together, which was Campaign Promise. And then a week later, we did our second 48-hour film challenge, which was The Handlers. And then we went on to do some other short films and challenges like The Mating Game and The Objective. The Objective is actually on my YouTube page. It's one of the films that I'm most proud of, especially for not having a visual. When you do a 48-hour film challenge, you're scoring to the script. And so they're shooting the movie while you're doing the music, as opposed to the normal thing, which is the movie has a rough cut. They give it to you to start working on ideas. And then, you do the spotting session with the final cut and all that. So here you're really kind of, you don't know what changes are going on set unless there's somebody there that's communicating that to you. And the script could be completely different from what you were given the night before. And so it's kind of a challenge. In fact, with that one, I remember there was the world, and then there was this game world, and then there was supposed to be like another real world. And I had written some stuff for that, but then they cut that from the film. And, it's a lot of quick changes going back and forth because you literally have 48 hours from the time that you find out what your genre is, what the prop is that's required, and what your dialogue line is that's required. You literally have 48 hours to write, shoot, edit, and export a film. So the time frame is really tight, and so you get, you go to the writers' meeting and you get an idea of what the story's going to be, and then the writers go off and they write the script, and then you get the script. It's usually like around 2 a.m. or so, and then you start formulating ideas. Then you'll talk to the director in the morning and see if there's certain things that they have in mind after they've had a chance to review it a few times and get some visuals in their head. And then you just go off writing, and you write as much as you can. And I remember the last one that I did which was with a different group. I think I wrote, it was 28 cues in it was less than 48 hours because I had to deliver everything. I think I delivered everything by 10 on Sunday morning. So from Friday night to Sunday morning, I had written 28 cues for that, which is kind of a lot. Some of them were very short cues, to be fair, and then some of them were longer song choices. And but yeah, you just kind of get a rhythm for it after a while. And after you do so many of them, then they're not that challenging anymore to me. because you kind of know what to prepare for, you know what you're dealing with, and you just get in that right zone and you just start writing like crazy. You mix it, you master it very quickly, and you get it to them so that they can put it in the film. They're good fun though, and they're great writing exercises, and they're great exercises for learning how to change things very quickly on the fly, especially if it's Sunday morning and you find out that changes were made and you need to write new music or you need to do something completely different for the film. They added some things that they weren't sure they were going to put in, and then you have to write something that's different from the rest of the score to fit that scene. All kinds of stuff. And so they're great practice. They help me learn how to write very quickly and how to kind of mix as I go, and to master very quickly. Not to the extent I would ever use that on, say, an album project or a film that I had a reasonable amount of time to work with. But sometimes you get commercial work, sometimes you get advertising that you have to do, and having those skills of learning how to output quality stuff quickly are really good skills to have. And so 48-hour challenges are great for that. And you get to work with different people. You really get to see creativity pushed, and I love that. So that was how I originally met Tamara, was through a meet and greet for an up and coming 48-hour film challenge, where if you were a team or you were looking to get on a team, you could go to this meeting. I can't remember the place it was at, but it was in Phoenix, and you would go to the meeting and you would kind of network, And back in these days, I'm kind of shy now. I'm not great at networking, but I've learned a lot, especially by going to the NAMM show. I've really kind of learned how to put myself out there, to go out of my way to meet people and interact. Whereas the first year I went, I was incredibly shy. I was like, I don't want to take up your time. I'll just take a card and I'll check you out later, and scuffle off with a card. And then by the second day, I was getting a little more interactive, because I realized that I deserved to be there, and these people were there to interact. And I wanted to know what they had to interact about. So I engaged and started getting better at it. And now I just go up to, whoever's interesting and whoever has a product that I want to see more about, and just, politely wait until they acknowledge me, and then I'll strike up a conversation. Because a lot of times they're already talking to somebody, or they're focusing on something else, and they can't just stop what they're doing and talk to you. So I like to be considerate, which is really weird, because in today's world, people just it doesn't even matter if you're talking to somebody, they'll just walk up and start talking. And I don't get that. I don't understand that at all. It's just incredibly rude. It gives a bad perception of that person, especially if you don't know them. And even if you do, it's like, I'm talking to somebody. I'll acknowledge you, and you can see I'm talking to somebody. I will be with you in a moment. But I'm in the middle of a conversation. So, I always hope that people be respectful, but that doesn't seem to be the case many times these days. But yeah, so back then I was incredibly shy, and I recall the meeting was over, and I was outside just waiting to say goodbye to the host who had invited me, and kind of was ready to leave a little bit disappointed, because I was looking forward to working on the challenge. I had only done one that had been a couple years before with my friend, and I have still never seen it. And in the middle of that, my computer crashed, and I had to reinstall the entire system and rewrite the entire score in one day. So that was fun. Not really. But I was bummed, because I really wanted to be meeting people. I was starting to take this thing seriously, getting into the world of film scoring. And what a great opportunity to start meeting people and networking. But unless you get on a team, you really can't do that. So I was bummed that there was no one. And while I was waiting to say goodbye, Tamara turned to me. She was also waiting, I think, to say goodbye to the host. And she turned to me and she pointed and she goes, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a film composer." And she goes, "You're on our team." And that was it. And then we did tons and tons of projects together. We did obviously a bunch of 48-hour film challenges, but we did some other films that people wrote and wanted to shoot. And sometimes I was the PA. One time I did sound design instead of scoring, because we did have a couple other composers in the group, and it was important that they all got a chance. It wasn't fair that I was scoring everything just because I was the main composer in the group. So it gave me an opportunity to get out and do different roles as well. And I met some people that I love working with, and I've gone on to do other projects with, and I've met some people that I wouldn't want to work with again. But that's the great thing about those kind of projects is that you get to meet people, you get to find out who you want to work with in the future, who's good, who you can call in a pinch, who's really dedicated and who's a diva and or difficult to work with. And so they're great experiences. And this group has gone on to do so many things, and so many people that were in the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers group, or I guess we all still are really, but a lot of them have moved to LA, some have moved here, some have moved to New Mexico and other cities, but a lot of them have gone on to do some really, really cool things, and it's great to see that. And I don't really know if people realize sometimes how they affect others. And when I think of just even that idea that Tamara had of deciding to start this group, and now over, well over 2,000 members, and thinking about, how a lot of these people, they got their first projects through this group, and to see them go on to LA and be successful, or New Mexico or wherever and be successful is really, really amazing, because I was not an original member of the group, but I joined shortly after it started, and I saw, I saw so many, changes and growth and setbacks and pushing forward, and so many things happen with people and with the group, and it's just great to see that it's flourished to the level that it has. And that's a big thing, having that kind of community and network. It makes a big difference when you're on a project and you need somebody for something. If you don't have that network, it's really, really tough to push through those projects and find a way to get them completed. So if you're a Phoenix person who's interested in the film industry in any aspect, whether it be a PA, a screenwriter, a grip, anything, reach out to the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers Group, because it's an absolutely fantastic place to meet and network. And, hopefully this new film office will get things up and rolling with the tax incentive and all that. But before I start the interview, one of the things that we talk about that I've always admired her for is that she is very big on making sure that people get credit for the things that they do. I think it's, the more people you work with and the bigger the projects, it's too easy to forget people that maybe had a small part in it, but she's adamant about that. And what's really interesting is, while I was having breakfast this morning, I was watching this thing on YouTube about Intellivision, the video game system from the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in there. And much like Atari, they didn't want the programmers to be known. They didn't want people to know who was creating the games. They were really worried that another company would try and headhunt them, because these are all very, very talented people who have a very difficult job, because coding back then was extremely difficult. And, getting these games on these tiny little memory capacity cartridges. I mean, you can't write an email for the amount of memory that you had max in one of those cartridges or in the system. So it's pretty amazing what they did back then. And of course, we look at the games now and they're so simple, but back then they were pretty amazing. But what bothered me about this interview, or about this thing I was watching, was that they specifically hid the people from getting credit for the work that they were doing. So they had to come up with a code term for how they were to be referred to. And, I understand it, but the fact of the matter is, sooner or later, somebody's going to find out who they are. And if that person's happy where they are, they're not going to want to go anywhere else. So why would you be afraid of that? And if you're thinking that they're going to go somewhere else, it's probably because you're not treating them well enough, whether it's pay or environment or perks or whatever. You got to take care of good people. And if you don't take care of good people, you're probably going to lose them to somebody who will. So number one rule of business, when you have people that you network with, whether you're hiring them for a certain aspect of your project, whether they're people you collaborate with or people that you depend on for whatever reason, treat people well. That will make a difference. So without further ado, I would say let's go ahead and start our interview with Tamara McDaniel. Okay, and let's welcome to the show Tamara McDaniel. Tamara, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. How are you, Mr.
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I know that this was kind of something we just threw together last night, so I appreciate your availability amongst your busy schedule.
Yes. Well, because I do try to focus my life around your needs, and I think this works out.
You do a fine job. And just so that it's on record, I'm fully accepting that you have things that you have to do outside of my needs from time to time.
Well, right, now and then. I get that. Yeah, I get that I have to limit it, but and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's why we get along.
Yeah.
So before we get into anything, I want to congratulate you. You guys just had the premiere of Girl Wired, which is a script that I read several years ago. Absolutely loved the first time I read it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. How was the premiere?
It was actually very amazing. I will say this: we rented a 200-seat theater, and we were just about at capacity. I think we're at like 195. So, nice. Yeah. So everybody, as many people as possible came out, and some of our crew is in Washington State, and some is in California. So some people were working, so not everybody could make it, but most everybody did, and everybody enjoyed it, and it was just a great time. And please let me give a little plug to the people at Harkins Theater.
Yes.
Very amazing, super, super helpful and friendly, and just couldn't do enough for us. Very, very nice there. And we had an after party over at the Santan Brewing Company. Mm. And same thing, very nice, fabulous little snacks, and they were incredibly cordial and helpful, and everyone just had a great time. So it was a rousing success.
One of the things that I've always loved and appreciated about you is that you are really, really big on making sure that people get credit for their efforts on your projects. And I find that a lot of times people tend to take that for granted. What was there something that kind of spurred that on for you, where you're so focused on that component
of giving people credit?
Yeah, I mean, but not just the people that were like the actors and the grips and all of those people, but the services that you use, like Santan Valley Brewery and Harkins and anywhere that we shot Bitsy Mamas when we shot the movie a few years ago. That's always been a key element for you, is to make sure that you acknowledge everyone that helps.
Well, yeah, because, it takes a village or whatever. No, it does, really, yeah, it does. I mean, because they don't have to be that nice, right? They just have to provide a service. They could, and actually at 50 Mamas, they really didn't have to be that nice. They were just outstanding.
They were amazing, yeah.
Yeah, but no, especially today, when how many times do we, encounter, you go into a store or whatever, and you can just tell that whoever it is that's waiting on you is just not happy to be there. Right. And they wish you weren't there either, Yeah. When I come across these places that really get customer service, and they're helping us in our, and especially in filmmaking, because it's so hard. It's so hard, and it takes so much work, and that work has to be done. But, you and I, and we all know that people don't have to be nice while they're doing it. So when you get that nice synergy of being nice and helpful and getting the job done, I feel it needs to be celebrated and talked about and put out there. People that go the extra mile for you need to have that, need to be recognized for that. And
it's well deserved, because the idea of, we're hosting a film crew for this event sounds really fun until you realize what's involved in hosting a film crew for that event. It's a lot of work. And these are people that, we're tired. If we need something, we kind of need it right now. There's not a lot of, not that there, from an emotional standpoint, there isn't patience, but from a timing standpoint, it's like, I have to have this in the next 30 seconds kind of situation. And it's a lot of hard work. And, it is great that you recognize those people, because I see a lot of films where, I'm curious, like, where did they, what restaurant was that at? And I look in the credits and there's nothing. You have no idea where they shot some of these things. And they're places I might want to go because they look interesting or for whatever reason,
Exactly.
and I don't know where to go.
Exactly. No, and I think we really do try to for those people that let us.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to know. No, I'm kidding. Never had anyone say no. Please don't mention me.
Well, but that is true because some people don't want to become. I mean, obviously they would want the business, but they don't want to become a spectacle because of their association with the film. And there's some places that are just like, we're just doing this because we're friends or whatever. We don't want that, and I can respect that. But you always offer it, and that I think is the difference.
Well, right, exactly. And I mean, the other thing is too, even if I, generally speaking, and I always ask first though. So like, even if there's a location that I can't necessarily mention because of, a myriad of reasons, I still try to thank the person who made it possible for me to be there. And, I mean, everybody, and on Grow Wired especially, so many people really helped us. And it was funny, there was one gentleman, and we give special thanks to everybody, and they're in the credits, and they got this. I think several people were there and did not expect to see their name or their company in the credits, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for putting us in the credits. And I said, look on IMDb, you're there too.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know. Isn't that what we're supposed to do when people help us? I mean, that's how my mama raised me.
Well, yeah. And it's and it is really the right thing to do, but it is a big deal, especially for people that aren't in the industry. It's pretty cool to have have an IMDb credit because that's something you never thought you would have.
Right.
And then there's times where there's just too many people to thank. Like when I shot with the Jason Bourne crew for one day, and so I'm credited as part of the city of Las Vegas. Because there were probably 4,000 people that they worked with here, and it's not Harry Potter. They're not going to have a 20-minute credit sequence,
Right, exactly.
Although I love that too, though, because there's another thing where, I mean, yeah, it's a long credit sequence, but you're talking about hundreds of animators, hundreds of special effects people, and everybody's name is in there.
Well, and in those particular cases, I believe they have to be.
That could be.
But... And you want them to be,
Right.
It's like these.
But they could sum it up and they could say, depending on how the contract is written, but they could say the crew of Industrial Light and Magic.
Right,
instead
exactly.
of listing everybody, But one of the things that I think is really interesting about doing an independent screening is that there hasn't been previous marketing publicly for this film, right? So when people go, they really are going with a complete open mind, no preconceived notion, because they really have no idea what they're about to see. And you can really get honest feedback about the film.
Right. Well, and in this particular case, to clarify this, it was for the cast and crew and their family and friends.
Oh, okay.
So, and other people, right? So like the EP and his wife had some of their friends who are, and the friends, and there was a lot of friends and family, they did have no idea about the movie, so there was a lot of, and we did get a lot of feedback from that. We invited people like John Bonnell and some other people, who would give us, tell us what they thought,
Yeah, and so, John's a perfect one for that. I mean, that's pretty much what he does.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we did have, so what you're saying is correct, although in this particular case, it wasn't like anyone had to buy a ticket. We paid for the screening and they came, but you would be surprised, except for the people who were there, in the cast really even, and the direct, crew, not even in some of the crew periphery, they wouldn't necessarily, unless they took the time to read the script. And how many shoots have you been on where you didn't do that? I can tell you there's been more than one that I've been on that I didn't do that.
Right.
I mean, depending on what role I played, right?
Yeah.
If I was just the PA, I probably didn't read the script unless I needed to know.
Right, or lead actor.
Right, exactly. I mean, if I was just there as some periphery person that, didn't need to know the script, then I probably didn't have time to read it, and I was just working. Right? And doing whatever. when you're doing craft services for a shoot, you don't need to know the script. You really don't.
Yeah.
You need to know what's happening that day. That's what you need to know. And so a lot of the people, that were even in the movie came and told me after. It's like, or maybe they were only, depending on what they did. Like we had carpenters and we had other people who were only there maybe for a day or two, and they were busy doing their thing. They weren't watching the shooting. And, they would say, gosh, I had, they didn't see the filming. They didn't read the script. And so it was a big surprise to them, and they worked on the film.
Well, and not everybody will get a script, too, because a carpenter, for example, or a PA may not get a script because they're not required to know the story. Their job is to just be there to assist with whatever's needed, or the carpenter to build a set, and they'll get an explanation of the set. But they might not get the script.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's good. I'm really glad that it was so successful, because this has been a film a long time coming, written by Tony D'Alessio, who we've worked with before, and it was just it's a very charming adventure, and at some points pretty intense. I mean, it really runs the gambit of emotion, and I'm glad that Tony was able to get that made, and that you guys were able to do it. I'm really, really happy about it. Yeah,
me too. It's been a long process, but, and Rusty, he did the post and over 500 visual effects shots.
Wow.
So, and he did all of it. And of course, it's like anyone who would look at his thing, it's like, well, because he worked on Spider-Man and The Matrix and all of the visual effects, so he kind of knows about that, Right. So.
And for those that don't know, Rusty is Tammy's husband, and he's a producer and a special effects artist. He's done editing, he's done voiceovers, much like you've done a number of voiceovers. You and I have done audiobooks together. We're just constantly, okay, I don't have a project, I need one in 10 seconds, because I'm getting antsy.
Exactly. Give me something weird to do.
Right. Yeah. Now, here's a question that's kind of off track, but I was thinking about this earlier, because I have a hard time doing this now, because you've been in the industry and you see the inside of every little detail, how special effects are done, how things are shot and all that. Do you find that it's hard to just sit down and enjoy watching a movie?
No, you think that I would. I mean, I don't live in the la-la land of my dad, who is kind of convinced that when people die in the movie, they actually kill them. And I keep saying, no, Dad, look at the progression.
You've seen them interviewed, right? Afterwards, they're okay.
We saw him after the movie came out, right?
Yeah.
So it's always a joke that we have. But no, I mean, I would say if the story is good, then little inconsistencies won't necessarily pull me out of the story. But if so, I would say it's harder for me to watch mediocre films now, where the story is only and the acting is only mediocre, because then I start looking at all the other crap that's also only mediocre.
Right.
Like, they really should have probably made sure that girl wore the same outfit from this cut to that cut, or whatever.
Right.
But I feel like if you're seeing those things, you're not in the story.
Well, but that's the failure of the
filmmaker failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I always look at it like if, especially if I'm in a movie theater, which I go to maybe once or twice a year, but if I start seeing the edges of the screen, for example, and realize that I'm in a movie theater versus being so engrossed in the story that I have to come out of it and go, whoa, I'm not at home, or I'm not really there, then they've lost me. And there are times where you may do that strategically because something big is coming up and you want to give the audience a break. But it's kind of risky to get them re-encapsulated into the film again. Yeah, exactly. But, here's something, right? Like, we did a little film a few years ago called Margarine Wars. And so I'm going to say, in Margarine Wars, there is a scene where we shot one half of it
one day. We shot the other half of the scene on another day. And between those 2 days, there was a ginormous wardrobe malfunction. And so, and it, not a malfunction necessarily, but they on the second day for the reverse of that scene, they had one of the people in a totally different dress, like obviously hugely different, like blue and red, like ginormously different. Nobody caught that.
Wow.
We didn't even catch it the first time we saw it. It was an after the fact thing that I forget how it was pointed out. But nobody caught that. And I mean, it was a huge but nobody did. And we did it and we missed it.
But you would think that the actor would know, because I see things like this in there's videos like Cinema Sins and other companies that point out movie flaws. And I watched some of them like, didn't you know your watch was on your left hand and not your right yesterday? But because the films are shot so out of sequence, the actor might not have realized which particular day that they were shooting the other half of.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? It's like, or it was like something, because the weather was so screwy during that shoot. It was one of those things where, hey, we're here, we're going to catch it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, wardrobe was there. They just put her in the wrong dress when we did the reverse. And so she was in a different dress, and the actress, nobody realized it at the time. But what I'm saying is that people who saw the movie did not catch the mistake.
Ah, that's interesting.
And it was a huge mistake. But they were so into the movie that they didn't notice. So that means that at least in that scene, we did our job as storytellers. Because that was a huge technical error, a ginormous technical error, that now I cannot unsee it. But I watched that movie in a theater and didn't notice.
Wow. And you, of all people, would be somebody that would...
I know. Right? I know.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's me.
What I love about Margarine Wars is that you got to work with a pretty amazing cast of people. I mean, you got to work with Doris Roberts, Robert Loggia.
Right.
I mean, those are like people on the dream list.
Yeah, Dee Wallace, Ellen Muth. We had some great people on there. Grant Cramer. It was a really fun shoot, and I mean, I don't know. It wasn't the last movie that Doris and Robert did, but I think it was probably one of the last few. And it's what a blessing to be able to work with those two.
Yeah, Doris was a lot like Dee Wallace, where she had at least 2 or 3 films going at the same time. And what people don't understand about when you look at IMDb credits and you see that somebody's worked on, 8 movies in a year, if they're not the lead actor, they might only be there for a week or 2 shooting their parts, and then they're off to another thing. So you can actually work on a lot of films if you have smaller parts.
Right.
Dee, however, a lot of times is the lead and still manages to do like 8 movies a year.
Oh, and in the middle of the filming, also has her podcast and her creation, conscious creation, and so she's just a wonder.
Yeah, she does a live radio show every Sunday morning, and then she does seminars and all kinds of stuff on top of all the acting work, and then she's also working with her daughter on different projects. I mean, she's one of the hardest working people I've ever known.
And the nicest.
Yes.
The nicest, kindest, funniest, sweetest. And I find that to be true. Doris was amazing. Bob was amazing. Just the nicest. Ellen, of course, amazing. Grant, same. Just the kindest. And that's the bigger stars that you work with. I mean, I've worked with millions of them, but all the ones that I've ever worked with, just the nicest, professional, just the best, just the really, really the best. And, Dee Wallace, bless her heart, I forget when I had her come in to do Aliens, I called her, and she was on vacation somewhere. And it was like, that was the one where we just had a few days to get everything ready, and we were shooting in like 4 days.
Right, yeah.
And I called her up personally. I didn't go to her agent first, as I could not waste time. I had to be able to call her agent and go, no, I talked to her. She's good with it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, can you do that? And she took my call, bless her little heart. And I hadn't talked to her in, I don't know, probably a year from the last shoot that we did. And she was just so sweet and, just the nicest, not pretentious, not just really, really wonderful.
Yeah, she is. She just has a heart of gold, and she doesn't really seem to have any lines, when not dialogue lines, but any lines when it comes to I'm willing to do this, I'm not willing to do that. Like every performance that I've seen her in, and I've seen a lot of her work, she goes all out for everything she does. She
just does it. She gives it. Whatever it is, whatever her character is, she's on it. She's there. She knows it. She's full all into it. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then afterwards, she's just the sweetest pie.
Yeah. And she's done obviously some pretty major movies, being in ET and being in Cujo and things like that, The Howling. But she also does a lot of independent work. And one of my favorite films of hers was the Hansel and Gretel movie, where she played the witch. And she just was so like raw and dark. And when you know her outside of that, and you know what a real person she is, it just goes to show what a talented actress she is to see her play in a role like that.
Well, I'll tell you a secret about, and I find this to be true for not every actor, but most of the actors I know, and myself included. It's fun to play the dark roles. It's cathartic to play the dark roles because most people try to be nice, as a rule, generally. I mean, because life and all, and
fair,
right? And so. And you want to be nice, right? So, but when you play a dark role, you get to do and say things that you would never allow yourself, or, probably in most cases want to do or say. But we all have those moments when we have that much stress and anger and whatever, right? I mean, it happens. But you fight that down because we're civilized. But when you're playing a role when you're supposed to be that raw and that angry or whatever, then to do your job, you have to let that out. And letting that out is cathartic.
Well, it's interesting that you say that it's interesting you say that because I have had a theory for years, and I think you just expanded on this for me a little bit. The theory has always been that a nice person can portray as an actor a nice person or an evil person, but somebody who is naturally evil cannot portray a nice person as an actor and be convincing. And I think the reason why is because evil people don't dream about being nice, whereas nice people have moments where they dream about being evil.
It's possible. All I know is that all of the people that I've ever met who play like those really dark roles are always the nicest, sweetest people. Danny Trejo, Richard Tyson. They usually play, Danny Trejo especially, usually plays these really dark, aggressive, but he's the sweetest person. You just want to kiss his whole face. He's the nicest nicest guy. And same with Richard Tyson, always generally playing these like hard asses and these blah blah blah. He's like, do. I mean, he's just like super dude. He's like the nicest guy.
Well, and people have such a preconceived notion about Richard from Kindergarten Cop because he played just that dark, straight. I mean, he was so dry and dark in that movie that's just the impression you get of him, no matter what. And until you see a movie that he's done like Jake's Corner, where you see what a real human being he is. It's hard to get that out of your head. And Danny Trejo, I've never met him, but I've heard nothing but wonderful things from people I know that have worked with him. But I think that you could have a drinking game of randomly searching IMDb movies and taking a shot when you actually find one he wasn't in.
Yeah, exactly. I know. He's done so, and always the bad guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Aggressive bad guy, but he is the nicest person. I was on set with him on Jake's Corner with him and Richard, and it was Kaylee's birthday, my daughter's birthday, and but I was on set that day, and I went up to Danny, and I never would do this, but what the heck, it was her birthday, and I was there, and so I said, and I was just going to see if maybe I could take a picture or something. And I was holding my phone, and I said, it's my daughter's birthday, and I'm here. And he's like, let's call her. I said, really? He said, yeah. So he calls her up, and I made huge mom points that day, let me tell you.
Oh, I bet.
Because she was with her little friends. Yeah, I was like big shit that day. And then he goes over to Richard. He's like, hey, say happy birthday to her.
That's pretty cool. But there's people that are in the limelight, people that are obviously well known around the world, like Danny, and there's really two kinds. There's the kind that you learn from because they're generous, they appreciate the fans, they appreciate the contact that they've made in people's lives. And then there's the people that are the opposite of that won't talk to you, that won't let you come near them. And you can learn from both of them, of how to treat people and how not to. But sadly, the ones that are assholes get just as much. It's almost like if you say you can't have me, now people want you more.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's a weird thing about celebrity, and part of me is like, well, it is kind of what you signed up for.
It is, yeah.
And you sort of knew that,
Yeah, yeah.
But by the same token, it also does have to get tiring when you just want to go to the grocery store and, get a few things or whatever, So, I guess I can see where, it's frustrating also, but you wouldn't be able to be rich and famous and all that stuff if it weren't for these people who want your autograph. So
that's very true. And it's interesting because people, they'll see pictures of me or something I'll mention, and they'll go, oh my God, so-and-so, or that picture that Kelly Kincart took of Ellen and I when we were shooting the Nephila. And, so many people would write me and go, oh my God, Ellen Muth. I'm like, yeah, we worked together for 3 days on a project. I was her assistant. It was absolutely wonderful. She's amazing. I love her to pieces. But it's such a big deal when you know somebody that they think they know by the characters that they've played. And who didn't fall in love with Ellen watching Dead Like Me? It was an amazing show. Her character was so emotional and so real, and someone you could connect to, But that's a character she played, and she's so different in real life. Like, I remember we were sitting there having a cup of coffee, and then she had to go shoot the scene where she was really upset and crying because she found out whatever in the movie, I don't want to say. But she can just go to that from 1 second. We're just having a nice conversation, a cup of coffee, and then she has to go find out that the world is not what she thinks it is, and she's okay just flipping that quickly.
She's a pro.
Absolutely.
That's why we like her. Yeah. Every movie I do that has a budget where I can get her, I do my best to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she was a great joy to work with. And it's interesting now, knowing somebody, and then you go and watch other things that they've done, like Dolores Claiborne, or even rewatching Dead Like Me, which I do every October.
Right.
It's interesting. It's like I kind of have a different perspective of her because I feel more the acting side of it because I know who she is off screen.
Right. Right.
Do you find that too? Because a lot of people that obviously have done a lot of other work. When you go to watch their work, do you see it differently after you meet them?
Sometimes. Usually I'm just usually they're giving some fabulous performance, and I'm like, that's so them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're awesome. So. I guess it's usually when that happens is when those people that are just teddy bears and sweet peas play the bad guy, and you're like,
right.
You're convincing, and however, it's even like in it's funny in Girl Wired, there's a bad guy. And the two bad guys, of course, in real life are just the biggest pussycats ever.
Right.
And after seeing the show, the one head bad guy was there with his wife, and both obviously just the nicest. They're cat people. Obviously, they're cool. And so,
right.
I was telling, there's some scenes though where this guy is so creepy. I mean, just so creepy. Even I know him. Even I know that, and I've seen that scene. My husband edited the movie. I've seen the scene more times than anybody should. Right.
Right.
Still, every single time I'm like, because it's just so creepy. And he's so creepy and he's so believable. And he's just in it right then at that moment. And so I was kidding with his wife and I said, so what do you think after seeing Garnet in that role? She's like, well, I got to tell you, now I'm a little conflicted.
As long as she hasn't filed for divorce yet.
Right, yeah, no, those two, they're just too adorable. But it's kind of like when you read John Kestner's, some of his darker scripts, right? You're like, he's a nice guy, he's a very nice, sweet guy. And yet, you read some of his stuff and you're like,
how twisted is this guy?
How did that come out of your brain? And that kind of freaks me out.
Well, and it's really interesting because right now I'm redoing. I have a bunch of my older albums that I've pulled off of the market, and I'm upgrading the sound and upgrading the writing a little bit. And I'm working on this rock album called Addicted, which is about somebody who was born to drug addicted parents. And I've not done drugs, so I don't know what it's like. And when I first put it out, the first thing that people would offer me is they started offering me pot or cocaine. And I'm like, it's an album. It's something that I wrote as a creative. And it's more interesting trying to get in the head of something I don't know than it is to write about something I'm comfortable with.
Right.
But then you get judged for that when you put it out into the world. And I mean, you look at somebody like Alice Cooper or Stephen King and what people think of them just because of the stuff that comes into their mind. And Alice Cooper is like one of the nicest, he's heavily Christian. He promotes all kinds of things that are not his character. And he's playing a character.
He funded the film school at Grand Canyon University. Or I guess it's an arts thing. So it's film and music and that kind of stuff. He funded that, or at least did the initial funding for it. So it's like,
yeah.
No, he's just a regular, nice person from everything that I've ever heard about him. But you're right. It's sort of like when you see Marilyn Manson, right? It was like, it's an act.
Yeah.
It's a character that he plays. And he's just actually a normal guy with really strange makeup habits. But,
but you get judged for that and you get put into categories, or people just automatically assume certain things because of the things that you create. And I have to look at a movie like, Halloween or Friday the 13th, and I don't think those people really thought about, when I die, I'm going to come back to life and just continually murder people.
Right.
Now, if it was inspired by something like, Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy or one of those people, and then you take that concept and you go, oh, what would have been interesting, and then, it melds into something new, that's kind of understandable. But when it's just, fresh out of nowhere, like you said, John Kestner and some of the stuff he writes, where he's a generally like very jovial, joking person, it's more interesting, I think, when it's just developed organically like that. But along those lines, I think what we should do is we should remake Misery and cast Ellen as Kathy Bates' character.
Oh. And who is going to be the
Paul
writer?
Sheldon. Well, it doesn't matter because he just lays there.
That's true.
I read recently that was one of the reasons James Caan almost didn't take that role, and a couple other actors it was offered to did not, was specifically because that's all they did was laid in a bed through the whole thing. And they're like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but it was such an intense movie. But you're right, Ellen would be good. And what would be, and because she's so Now, Kathy Bates is physically more imposing. So with Ellen being just a teeny little nip of a person that she is, you could go really weird and dark with that because of the things that she would have to do to the person to keep them under her physical control.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it would have to be more dark, more not too much more, but more Saw than the original Misery.
Right. Yeah.
But Ellen has such amazing facial expressions that while she may not be physically imposing, I think she could sell it that way. Oh,
she's totally creepy. Yeah, she can. I mean,
she's adorable.
She's adorable and totally sweet, but she can it's that, it's that death stare of hers that scares me.
Yes.
I mean, luckily I have one too, so like I can do the whole finger thing where I'm watching you.
Right.
So, Ellen is just the sweetest thing ever.
She is.
But she can do that look that would scare a 200-pound man if he knew what was good for him. Mm-hmm. Should scare him.
I've seen it, and it's amazing, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Now, you're primarily a producer.
Yes.
But you don't work, you work on set, but you more so handle all the paperwork, all the background stuff, all the stuff that no one really wants to do, but you do it.
That's what producers do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
on set also, but yes. Yeah. I'm doing the paperwork from when we're just thinking about the movie,
right,
until it's sold. Yeah.
Now, do you find that you'd rather be on set, or is this something that you've just gone, this has to happen, somebody needs to do it, and I'm going to make sure it's done right?
Both. I mean, I am on set. I'm on set all the time because I still have producer stuff to do on set because things are happening and contracts need signed and at the moment. But I also have to get everything prepped so that they're ready to happen when you're on set.
Well, when I say that, I mean more like you're there, but you're not there, during all the scene filming and stuff like that. Because you're busy with the contracts and stuff, you're not able to see as much of that as you used to be able to.
Right. I would love to be able. I mean, I would love to be in a movie that was. I would love to work on a movie where the budget was big enough that I had an associate producer to do all of the grunt work that I do as a producer on a lower budget movie,
mm-hmm.
so that I could be on the set watching the filming,
right,
and being part of the creative process. However, it's just not in the cards when you're on a lower budget movie because someone has to do the stuff that allows you to sell the movie when you're done.
Right.
And that's generally me. So,
but you're also very good at it. I mean, you're definitely an every I is dotted, every T is crossed kind of person.
Yep.
And that's vital for a position.
And in fact, I need to do, it's funny the way February has worked out for me. I need to audit the Girl Wired paperwork because now we're coming up on selling it. I mean, it's in. I know that it's all there and it's all good, but I need to do a final audit so that everything is exactly as it should be. That every electronic copy is correct with every paper copy, and everything is where it needs to be, so that when we turn over the Bible for the sale company, that everything is there.
Right.
So,
which is really, this is laborious as this process is. It's exciting that you need to do that because that means that you're heading towards the sale and distribution of this film that you've worked so hard on.
Yes. And it's very exciting because we already have 3 companies we've been talking to. A 4th wants to talk to us, and we're going to talk to them. And then we have a few more that we're going to talk to, and then we choose a deal and go forward with that. So it's very nice to have the interest that we do, because the movie, it's funny, one of the people that went was like, gosh, that's quirky, and it kind of is, because it's not a kids movie. It's really not a kids movie, and it's not I mean, it has some dark elements where you really feel the kids are in peril. But it's not like a Freddy Krueger, and it's not, it's not Cape Fear. It's like it's its own thing, so it's not easily pigeonholed in terms of where it falls. And I was very nervous about that because it isn't pigeonholable. And most sales companies on an indie film, they want it pigeonholable. They want to be able to say it's a family film, or it's an action film, or it's a drama, or whatever.
Well, they just want to slip it into one of their current marketing streams and go, okay, here's what it goes, here's the campaign we do, and off.
Right.
But I would imagine the challenge on this film is because when you look at the poster, which I know the audience hasn't seen yet, but when you look at the poster, it looks like it's a kid's film because it's the main character is a child. But is the challenge selling the fact that it's really not a kid's movie and convincing them that it's not when the lead actor is a child?
It's weird because it's kind of, I would say, given what's available on TV today and on cable today, I would say it's completely appropriate for those tweens and young teens. Like, so PG-13 is like generally where we were with it, where we were looking at. And I believe it's completely appropriate for that. But it's not like a little kid's movie, for sure. And I think it's too dark for that. And
but that's the challenge, because you want to, obviously we have ratings to protect certain age groups from being exposed to things that might not be the right thing for them to see, or to say, hey, parents, maybe you should go see this first and then decide if you want to bring your kids. And thanks for the double sales, by the way. But at the same time, I feel like we've over-labeled things so much that it's really hard to choose. And we do this in music too, maybe even more so. Mm-hmm, but it's hard to explain to somebody what it should be because it doesn't fit nicely into those little buckets.
Exactly. And so that's exactly correct. And so I was very nervous, actually, from the get-go about this movie. It's like, I always liked it, obviously. I wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But I was very concerned about, well, when it comes time to sell it, how are we going to do? But so it makes me, I'm very happy that we have 3 sales companies who have seen, what they have seen is the working copy. We had private links for people that we sent to several of the sales companies. So when we had the working copy up, where some of the, I think some of the visual effects weren't fully developed, and they were in there enough, though. And of course, it's all done, and we have to do the deliverables and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, it's a done thing. It's a done deal. And it was from looking at the working copy that these people are so excited about the movie. So that makes me feel good that even though it's not easily pigeonholable, as it were, there's still at least 4 companies who feel like, it's something that they want to represent.
Right.
So,
what they're looking for is is the quality of the movie visually and audio. Is it enough for us to be able to market it, because we can't put out anything that doesn't have those 2 components 100% there.
Right.
And then the second thing they're looking at is the story, and can they market it?
Right. And the girl who is the lead is just remarkable. And all the actors that we got were just really, really fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, 2 kids and grandpa and the bad guys and just everybody in between. Just really, really remarkable.
That's good.
Really excellent.
Yeah, and the casting obviously is so important in every project. And even sometimes when sometimes you can pull it off if you if the person, when you cast them, maybe they presented themselves in a way that you thought they would work, and then you get them on set, and 3 days in, you find out they're not going to, but it's too late. You know,
Yep, been there.
especially on the smaller budget films, you don't have the luxury of saying, all right, you know what, we've been shooting with them for 2 months, but they're just not cutting it, so we're going to get rid of them and get somebody else. You can't do that. You just don't have the time. You don't have the money or the luxury. So you have to make it work. So casting is very important. When you are casting, is there certain... Do you have to just feel it with a person to know that they're the right one, or is there something that you look for?
Well, when I'm selecting people for consideration, because only the director really chooses.
Sure.
But yeah, I have to know the script. I have to know the story. I have to know the character, and can they act? Can they take direction? Do they have the right look? Do they seem to feel the character? And a lot of it is just kind of instinct. It really is kind of just instinct. It's like, I know it was really funny. We had, I always thought of Serenity as Glory. I always thought of her. And she had some, there was a lot of girls that came in and read for that part, and they were all really good. But for me, it was just always her. I just always liked her. There was one other girl who was close, but when I read that script initially, I was like, it's Serenity. I just felt it was her right from the get-go. And Tony agreed, obviously, because he chose her.
Right. And it would have taken somebody, once you have that in your head, they either have to be incredibly awful, or they have to be, it would have to be somebody that does something so tremendous to take that person off of the pedestal. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but she was awesome. And, so it was not a big stretch, really.
Right.
The other thing that comes up when you're casting, though, and came up in Girl Wired, right? So we had Poppy, which is the grandfather role, which is a very critical role. Tom Noga was amazing as Poppy. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, that was one of those things, and it was just a feeling. It's like we all liked him, but there was 2 other guys there who were also very, very good. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of them we did have come back, and he played the priest at the funeral ceremony. But there was 3 guys, and they were all. I mean, there was more than that who auditioned, but Tom and these other 2 guys were really good. And it just kind of came down to, I really think, the chemistry between Tom and Tony. Mm-hmm. And, so it was like Tony, I was having a tough time. I mean, I loved Tom, and I think he was probably always kind of first, but the other 2 guys were also really good, and I didn't dislike them. That it's like, most of the time you can get to a point where it's like, yeah, this is the one. But in that case, I was really torn, because there was, I liked all 3. There was 2 I liked the best, and but I couldn't decide. And as it wasn't my decision anyway. It had to be the director.
Right.
But yeah. So and when Tony made the decision for Tom, because part of it was, just logistics too. And then I knew, it's like, then it kind of clicked into place. It's like you're putting the puzzle pieces down and they click into place.
Right. And there are times where, especially the more that you get, the more that you get to know actors, or especially because you've been in Phoenix film for so long, you know who to bring in and just see who plays better in a particular scene, because the 2 or 3 people you're bringing in are all going to be good.
Right.
And then it comes down to, okay, which one do I take? Because I like all of these. And I remember when you and I were, the only time I've really been involved in casting was when you and I did the animation, and we were going through all these voice auditions that we had gotten for different characters. And I remember we were back, yeah, that was a fun day. But we were going back and forth between Alexandria Stevens, who I did not know at the time. I knew her husband Shane, but I hadn't met Alexandria yet. And Sally Ann Francis for this one particular creature character. Right. And we listened to Alexandria, we listened to Sally, back to Alexandria, back to Sally. We just could not decide. And finally we were just like, we didn't quite flip a coin, but we were almost down to that. Both auditions were so good. And we ended up going with Sally by like a hairline margin. Who brought an amazing quality to that character. But I'm sure Alexandria would have as well. It's like sometimes you just have to pick somebody.
And that's what it is too. And there's so many factors that fall, and particularly when it's visual as well, then it's like, okay, well, who looks good together?
Right. We were just doing voices because it was, an animation, but this is that's a whole nother component, is the look, the expressions, how they're going to mesh with the other characters that they're going to interact with. Right.
And, is there chemistry? Like, cause Xander Simmons is Serenity's brother in this movie. So it's like, is it believable that he's her brother? And for that role too, again, he was my favorite going in. Serenity was my favorite going in for those two. But we, surprisingly got some others that were some other auditions that, because you kind of have your mindset when you're first pulling people, because you don't know the other people.
Yeah.
And then you know these people. And so when you go in, you have to keep an open mind. Luckily, Tony didn't really know any of them. So he, and neither did Rusty. And they were the co-directors. And so they really had, less of a, what's the word?
Like a preconceived notion.
Like a preconceived notion, yeah. And whereas I had some of my favorites, and Tony did defer to me to a certain, he'd say, well, he not defer to me, but he would ask me, what's your opinion on this and blah, blah, blah. And, as a casting director, you give that.
Right.
So, and I was pushing for Serenity from the get-go, and Xander. And,
but that's kind of the difference in why you have a casting director versus a director is, one, I mean, you're weeding a lot of people out that the director doesn't even need to see. But also that because you've already done that, the director can just come in, spend less time in working really more with the chemistry side of it, and then deferring to you for this person and I don't. Are they going to be tough to work with? Is it worth taking this person over that person, knowing that maybe a particular challenge this actor is going to have? I think it's almost better for the director not to know the people, because they're going to come into it really from the creative standpoint, whereas you're going to be weeding out the problem children.
Right, exactly. And that was the other thing was, we had everybody, I love this thing where you can do now, you can have everybody turn in video auditions first. So essentially when you have the quote unquote in-person audition, it's really a callback.
Right, yeah.
And, and I love being able to do that, because that let me look at those people next to each other, look at the two videos, because you can't keep people there all freaking day, right?
Right. It's not American Idol.
Video. Yeah, exactly. If you have a video, you can watch this one. It's like, because you can't bring, you get 50 submissions. I can't bring them all. Oh, well, let me put it this: I will not bring them all in.
Right.
Okay. So,
but is it a double-edged sword though? Because that door is so accessible to a wider audience of people. Do you get more submissions of people that really aren't qualified for the part just because they can do an easy video?
Absolutely, but generally speaking, they also suck on the video. Well, so it's easy enough to weed them out. I haven't ever had anybody. I mean, I have on occasion had someone who turned in a really good video and then they came in person. I mean, that happens. Sure, and you're just like, so did you freeze up? How long did it take you to do that audition? Because this was terrible, Because
we're paying for the camera time, so we can't have you doing 18 takes for
Right, exactly. And I mean, I always give those people, another shot, and you want to do, because you want the best talent, and they may be having an off day, so you want to give them every opportunity to do well when they're coming into audition. But, you also have to think, there's a part of my producer brain. Now, the directors aren't necessarily thinking about this, but I am, which is saying, I'm not going to have time for this. So we've got 18 days and so many scenes, and they better get it in the first couple of goes.
Right. Well, you look at a movie like Back to the Future, where they shot almost half of that movie with Eric Stoltz as the lead character, and then they decided this isn't going to work, and they canned all of that and got Michael J. Fox, which you could never do that on an indie budget.
No.
Yeah,
you can't.
Well, I'm glad that this one worked out, and I think that obviously your experience, because you've directed, you've done pretty much all the facets. You've acted, you've seen both sides of the camera. So for you, your eyes are very keen to a lot of problems that not necessarily every casting director would be able to do, because they might not have been in those positions before. Right,
exactly. Well, I've only directed voice work. I haven't directed directed that way. But I've been directed, and I've acted, and I've done voice work, and I've produced. And so there's a lot of, as a producer, there's like 900 things going on in your head all the time about any given situation on any given day of any given shoot, because there's so many moving parts that all have to come into it. Not the least of which is my permit right? Do I have a copy of it? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You're doing a stunt. No, we hadn't talked about a stunt. You can't do a stunt. I'm not insured for a stunt. No, we're not doing a stunt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or your car breaks down when you go to get Gatorade for the set.
Right, exactly. Or that kind of thing happens.
Yes, and it has.
And it has happened. Yes, it has happened.
Well,
you saved me that day, thank God.
Yeah, well, I tried. It was, I got the Gatorade to the set, and I just kind of left you to deal with your car.
To be fair, though, we did have Superman Policeman who pushed that car, heavy GMC Jimmy, not a little car, uphill across 3 lanes of traffic, uphill on the access ramp to the freeway.
And this, by the way, this is not a tall tale. This is not when somebody says, I had to walk to school 4 miles in snow uphill. This is actually the truth. This really did happen.
True story.
Yeah.
Yes, true story.
Yes.
I broke down in the left-hand turn lane that would lead onto the freeway on-ramp, and he had to go from the left hand all the way across the right hand and up the freeway on-ramp on the opposite side to get my car out of traffic so I could get it towed.
Yeah, because when I came back to get you, because the reason I left her there was because I had to get the water and the Gatorade to the set. Yeah. And when you're in the business, that's always whatever is happening on set is more important than whatever is happening with me. So I got the water to the set. I go back to pick her up, and as I'm driving, the car's not where it was. And I turn around and I see that's where it is now. And I'm like, whoa, you guys pushed it. And she goes, no, he did it. Because he can't have you as a liability. If anything happens, the car rolls backwards, or we're like, he can't be responsible for anything happening to you. So he really couldn't let you help him.
No, I was inside driving. So he pushed the car and me.
Right.
It was. We called him Superman after that.
And he got a film credit.
Yes, he did.
So
Superman.
One of the things that, especially when it comes to the casting, that you do have an advantage of is you've been working in Phoenix Independent Film for years. You started the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers Group, or PIFMG, as we started calling it, even though people couldn't pronounce that. They kept calling it PIFMG, which is a whole different animal.
Yes.
But this was a community that you created out of nothing, that became a network of people that could borrow each other, borrow equipment, work on each other's films, all to grow film in the independent community. And much like Zoni, which was headed by Debbie Overby, it just became this huge community of people that really just wanted to make films. It wasn't about being famous. It wasn't about trying to get somewhere. It was about, I have an idea. I want to shoot this film. Who wants to help? And a great group of people that just wanted to work together. And of course, then it escalated into people that were trying to do things that were bigger. And, that's the natural progression when you have a group of people that are all creatives. And now you always wanted to get it to the point, though, where you weren't managing it anymore. It's there now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I still am the main organizer officially, but, everyone else has kind of taken over. There's something going on at least once a week, all the time. And I'm not doing those meetups. Somebody is. And there's meetups. I mean, meetups and all kinds of things are happening through that group. And people are using that group to get help, to hire. I mean, that's where I go first always when I'm hiring people. I put a note out to anyone says, oh, I need this or that. It's like, send an email to the group.
Right.
Or send it to me and I'll send it to the group. And, I've had so many people come to me and say that it's been such a great resource. They needed this, they needed that. They got response. It was great. And, and that's what I wanted. Something that, where I don't have to do the meetings every month. And now I don't, because people are meeting all the time. And, if they want me to make it a meetup and they're not one of the organizers, I'll do a meetup for them. They just need to give me the details and I have a bunch of assistant organizers that are always doing meetups anyway. So. Right.
That helps. Yeah. But I remember when we first hit like 100 people, and that was exciting. And then we had, we would do the meetups. We would try to do them every month at one of the library rooms, like Burton Bar that we would rent out. And, 12 people would show up. And I've watched it grow from this little seed to, the insanity that it is now. And I mean that totally in a good way.
Yeah.
But it's really incredible what you started and maintained. And now you said something to me the other day that I thought was interesting. You referred me to the Phoenix Film Office for something. You guys have a film office again.
Well, the Phoenix Film Office has always been there. It's okay. Office is probably overstating it, but that's what it's called. But it's basically one person and a secretary. So that's Phil Bradstock. What we have now, though, is as far as I know, it's still there. The Arizona Film Office is back. And that's Matthew Earl Jones, which is James Earl Jones's, I don't know, brother, cousin, nephew, son, something. Mm-hmm. Some relation to James Earl Jones, was Matthew Earl Jones. And so I guess he's been doing I believe that he's in charge of it. He's like the main contact there for the Arizona Film Office. And so he and other people, I think that's actually more of a staffed thing, actually, than the Phoenix Film Office. Yeah, the Arizona Film Office had gone away. Every city has its own.
Right. But I've seen, so many people talking about trying to get the incentive back. And my thought has always been, but if you get the incentive back and somebody wants to come film in Arizona, who are they going to call to coordinate that? What are your resources? There's nobody there to help with the paperwork and to get the people that are required under the conditions of the incentive. I think I don't remember the percentage, but
to be fair, that's still the case. I mean, I don't really know because we don't have an incentive, so it doesn't matter. But
it's a start in the right direction if you want to have one. You have to have the infrastructure if you want to have that available. And I do hope you guys get it because obviously, there's a lot of things that if you want to shoot, you either do it out of your own pocket or you have to go somewhere else, which might cost you in the travel and hotel and all that, but at the same time, you're getting that percentage back. It's a real fine line, and I've seen so many people. It's one thing if you're leaving to go to LA because that's a whole different world, and that's understandable. But to go to Georgia or New Mexico or these other cities, I guess Ohio's another one now that's cropping up as another tax incentive place. It's a shame for the state of Arizona when there's so much talent there that they're not capitalizing on it.
No, I agree with you completely. And, I mean, the story. I mean, back before we lost the incentive, we had a whole thing set up. A studio was going to come in, they were going to build, blah, blah, blah. And then we lost the incentive and they went, I don't think so. Multi-million-dollar studio. It was going to be a big deal. We're working with the tribal community. Everything was set to go, and then we lost the incentive, and all that just went poof. That would have been jobs, and it, so on such a big level. I hope that the Arizona Film Office and the people there, and to my knowledge, that is what they're working towards, is trying to bring back the incentive. And I know it was a huge deal just to get the office in place again. So kudos to Matthew and the folks that he was working with. I feel terrible that I don't know who the other players are, but I know that Matthew Earl Jones is he's kind of the head of it, as far as I know. And so obviously being James Earl Jones's, I'm not sure if it's his brother or nephew or something like that. I know they're related, but I know that they're like a closer relation. So he has contacts through the business, and I know he's been using that. And I heard tell that they were at AFM. I believe that's true. Promoting Arizona, because the thing is that it's still, no matter what, it's cheaper to shoot here.
Oh, sure.
Just is. And, and we have a lot of talent, both in front of and behind the scenes. And the best weather. And that's a big deal. If you've ever shot places where the weather's not so reliable as it is here, it's a huge deal that you can count on the weather here, which is not the case in almost anywhere else, including LA.
Except that it seems like times when we were shooting happened to be the one windy day of the month, and
well, right, yeah, obviously that's going to happen.
And I wish the best to you guys. I really hope it works out. And in spite of all of that, you still have had studios open, like Squishy Studios. I think are they the ones that have like the full green screen and everything?
Well, there's quite a few of those actually. Cox has had a green screen for a long time, and Illumina Studios has. I believe they're still open, but there's you're thinking of Sneaky Big. Sneaky Big, yeah, Sneaky Big has a big studio, and I'm sure they have a green screen, but Joe Reynolds' studio. Oh, that's terrible. I just went blank on that. It's Skyline. They have a green screen and a white screen, and it's smaller. Sneaky Big is bigger. Cox is bigger. There's another big one actually also that's out by I keep meaning to go out there. It's out by the it's one of the networks out by the football and ice hockey rink out here on that side.
In Westgate?
Yeah, out by that area. So there's another studio out there. And so, it's one of those things where people do come and film here. But it's just because we don't have the incentive, it's not all up in the news and stuff. Well, there's a lot of directors that love filming here because they know that the people who are here that are working in the business love the business. And when you go someplace most of the time to a location to shoot, they still think it's fun to have a movie shot at their location.
Oh, sure. But I would imagine the producers are going to minimize the amount of time they spend in Arizona, or might have second unit shots where a lot of the stuff where they could do all the interiors and stuff there, they'll do those somewhere else because they don't get that kickback.
Right.
Which I mean, from a producer standpoint, it's your job to keep the budget in line, so it makes sense. So hopefully, but I'm glad that there's at least resources and places for people there to film, because there are a lot of great creative talents in Arizona, and they need those outlets. So I'm glad that's at least come together. But my last question for you, because I mean, I could talk to you about a million things, and I know you'll come back on the show. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I think this could be really helpful for people that are working in independent film, and that's your realm. When it comes to deciding the path of your career, when you're going to go to LA, because I see people doing that all the time, they'll say, I've got a couple $1,000s in the bank. I'm going to go out there and make it work. Probably not. I mean,
Yeah, good luck with that.
You need to have connections already. You should have relationships established before you go out there. You should have obviously a place to live and much more money saved up than a couple grand in the bank. But as somebody that's aspiring towards getting to that eventually, when do you stop working for free? Where do you see that sort of that line between I need resume credits and experience so I can get the bigger jobs, and I can't keep doing this if I want to make this a serious career?
As soon as humanly possible. Your time is valuable. I mean, I did a lot of free work, but it was stuff like, and I did a lot of cheap labor. The free work I did was primarily our film challenges, and I still would be open to that because they're fun and they're helpful.
Well, I think contests are kind of aside from it, though, because for one, you can't pay people. That's part of the rules.
No, right, exactly. And student films and stuff like that, you help them out because they're students.
Right.
But generally speaking, now I've done, like when I was a paid intern on Nether Beast, I made $10 a day. Wow. And I worked anywhere from 12 to 20 hours at a stretch. So it was fun, and I learned a lot, and I never regret it, loved it. And I feel like I really cut my teeth on that. After that, I didn't do a lot of, aside from the challenges and things like that, and the odd short film here and there, like I didn't make anything on Nephila. I paid for that. And same with what was the other one that we did, that other short with Jay Lee and the Hierophant.
Oh, the Hierophant, yeah.
I didn't get paid for that either. And so I guess there were a few like that. And I did a lot of free acting for people, for their shorts and their stuff like that. And I still would act for free, for fun. For people that I know, it's ultra low budget. If I had nothing better to do and they were friends of mine, would I go be an extra for them? Yeah, probably. Just for fun, if I could,
Right. But your career isn't along the lines of aspiring actor, though, right? Because if it was, you might view that differently. Right, exactly. No. But I won't do, and after the Nephila and the Hierophant, I will not produce for free. Not anybody. And I won't do UPN. I won't do those hard jobs. I won't do anything like that for free anymore. It's like, if you want me on your set, you have to pay me to be there. And because if I feel like this, if I'm going to make money on the production, or the person who wants me to come work for free for them is going to make money on the production, then they should be paying the people who are there, helping them get that. And that's just the way that I feel. Now, I have, when you're an extra on something like on an ultra low budget picture, oftentimes you're just there for a good meal. Right. Because, but an ultra low budget picture by nature is, we're just barely hanging on by the skin of our teeth. And I guarantee you that the producers make less per hour than everybody else on the show, because we're putting in more hours, so, and even those, situations, like, we try to pay at least a gas stipend. So we try to put that in the budget. Sometimes that has to come back out of the budget because of whatever. Something happens, you have something comes up, and that's the first thing to go. But generally speaking, even on those, we try to pay something for the extras, even if it's just $10, $20, something to pay for their gas and a nice lunch. We figure at least that's something they get, and we give them credit. See, you look on IMDb, they're all there. If you look on the credits on the
movie, they're there. So we made sure to, if I say that you're going to get credit, then you're going to get credit. We don't promise copies for extras because we can't afford that.
Right. Yeah. Now, to tag along on that, do you, as a casting director, when you have those eyes on, do you look down or lesser, I should say, of somebody who's just done a bunch of shorts? Do you want to see a couple of features under their belt? Is that like you should really kind of at some point start doing features and stop doing shorts?
For acting, well, everyone has to get their first one. So I don't necessarily, and I don't care if you got paid for the pictures. I care, can you act? And that's what I tell actors in general or any crew. It's like, I don't care if you got paid for that. I care, did you do it? Did you do the work? And what did the person you do it for think? And, how did it look? If you can put a reel together with shorts and you're doing good work, then what do I care if it's a short or a feature? It doesn't matter. I'm sure it does in LA, but for me, it doesn't affect my opinion. And I don't think it does, casting directors, we're all whores. We just want the best talent, and we want to look good by look at this fabulous talent that we found, right?
Sure, yeah. But I would think if you're going for somebody to carry the film as a lead, you want to know that they've got the ability and the experience to really carry
as a lead. As a lead, that's different. They have to at least have been a lead in a short. They have to be able, because a feature is not like a short. A feature is like, you got to have stamina, and every person who works on that has to have stamina, from the PA to the lead talent and everybody in between, because it's not just 1 day or 2 days. It's 18 days, or sometimes, depending on the movie, sometimes a lot longer, right? So you have to be able to bring that every day at 5 a.m., get in your makeup, get on screen, and I don't care if you had a bad day or a fight with your mother or whoever, you better be able to professionally leave that aside.
Right. And you have to be consistent in your character. You can't, have mood swings as a character. You have to be, if this is the way that you deal with this situation or this is the emotional reaction you have to be consistent throughout the entire film. So it is a lot to carry a feature versus a short, for sure.
Well, and again, here's the thing, right? It depends on your budget.
Right.
If you're doing, typically if you're doing a SAG feature, well, your leads are going to be SAG. And they're, like Serenity was the lead in this. She wasn't SAG, but I had already seen her do features before, and I knew what she could do. And Sander also was just, I'd seen him audition for other SAG stuff. And frankly, it was in our best interest to not have the kids be SAG. Even though we stuck to the SAG rules in how we dealt with them in terms of how long they were on set and all that other stuff. We stick to SAG rules whether we're doing a SAG movie or not, because they make sense. But that said, we were not, we wanted to introduce and bring up some newer talent. So, but our, Poppy was SAG, Mosey was SAG. There was another, so we had several SAG actors on there, and they were key roles that you want somebody who's a professional, that this is what they do, and the other people are getting there, and so you can, I think if you have a mixture, if somebody that's in a lead role is a real pro and has done a lot, they can assist with your people who you are bringing up who may not necessarily have carried a whole movie before,
right? And
are carrying this one, because everybody has to have that for the first time, right? So why not have it be me that helps them be that first time person. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you're never going to get there unless somebody gives you a chance at some point and says, "Hey, I think you've got what it takes. Let's give it a shot and see." Because nobody would have been there if somebody hadn't given them that chance.
Right, exactly.
You also have to have some kind of something to show you that there's a reason to believe in you, that there's a reason to take a chance and say, we're going to give you a shot at this one.
Right. Well, and like in Serenity's case, I've known her. I worked with her. I brought her in for her first film role on another shoot, which was Coyote Requiem, when she was like 5 or so, something like that. And, you know, and I had seen her grow and do other things, and throughout the years since then. So, and I knew she had been doing theater, and she'd been doing, you know, so she had been working on stuff. She'd been taking classes, and, you know, so I knew that she was ready, if anybody at age 11 is ready to carry a movie.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you look at somebody, we talked about Ellen earlier. I mean, I can't remember, was she like 7 or 8, I think, when she did Dolores Claiborne, which is a Stephen King movie. I mean, that's something that obviously is going to get a heavy amount of attention just because his name is associated. And somebody saw something in her and said, you're the right person for this movie. And they gave her a chance. And I mean, obviously her career went on to bigger things from there. But to give a child especially that kind of responsibility, that's really saying a lot on behalf of the people that are casting them.
Well, you know, it's funny. Well, here's a funny story. I'll tell you one more from this. So the answer is, first of all, though, the short answer is, you know,
that's as short as you can make it.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to go by your gut, you know, and there's a lot of different factors. It's different for every single person, and you just, you know, if you can get you know, if you can afford to be picky, who doesn't want to, you know, have some, you know, lead A-lister star? But, you know, most of the time, at least in my world, I can't do that, you know, so you have to look at the possibility for other people.
Sure. And you may be creating the A-listers of the next generation too, because you're giving them a chance now.
Right, exactly. And it's funny, the little girl who plays young Glory, and Serenity plays Glory in the movie, and the little girl who plays young Glory, this is just one of those cute stories that hopefully your listeners will find fun.
Okay.
So Rusty and I are at, we needed a young Glory, and Rusty and I are in PetSmart shopping for cat stuff. And I was looking for cat wipes. And cat wipes are freakishly expensive, and they're just baby wipes. I'm going to put that out there. That's just a little tip for your listeners right now. Just get baby wipes. Get the cheapest kind you can. That's all they need.
Right.
Anyway. So, and cat wipes, the same thing you'd pay $2 at the dollar store. $1 at the dollar store is like $13 at PetSmart. Don't even go there. It's stupid.
That's just crazy. Anyway, but that's our, you know, that's our economy, right?
Yes, exactly. So anyway, so we're there, and you know how you do sometimes when you see something that's so outrageous, and you turn and you talk to some random, can you believe this? You know, some random stranger in the store, and I did that because I was so shocked at the cat wipes price. And there was this little girl, and she started talking to me, and the mom was talking to me, and I kind of like went into that stare, and I wasn't even sure, honestly, where I was going to go to find a young Glory. I hadn't gotten to that point, but I knew I had to. And I looked at her, and she was the spitting image of a young Serenity, first of all. And she was so adorable and so open and a little talker and just the cutest little thing. And I called Rusty over and I said, do you see what I see? And I'm sure that there was, I think it was her mother and I believe her aunt that were there with her. He's like, young Glory. I went, yeah. And I said to the mom, I said, this is going to sound weird, we're movie producers. We're producing a movie. Your daughter is perfect to play this younger role. I'm not even going to audition anybody else. I just want a little video to show the director because I think he's going to agree with me. Can you, I said, I'm going to give you my information now. I want to take your information. We're not casting yet. I'm going to be soon. So this was like months out before we were getting ready to cast. And, here's my email. Here's, blah, blah, blah. I said, I know this is weird, but I'm telling you, she's perfect. And sure enough, I sent her a little thing. I said, hey, can you just do a little video on your phone and just text it to me? And she did. And of course, Tony fell in love with her. And she was amazing. Just amazing. She had her lines memorized way before we were ever shooting.
Wow.
And they were complex, right? Because she has to be a little tiny girl genius.
Well, yeah,
and so
exactly.
she has to rattle off this book name itself that was just, I couldn't even say it,
But kids are more likely to be able to do that. And I love that when you find somebody that's just, an organic situation. It's not somebody that's trying to get into this. It's just you saw them and they're perfect. And if they just go in and be themselves, it's exactly what you want.
Well, and that was it. No, she had to act. And she did. I mean, right? Because in the very first part of the movie, she has to be really smart. And then there's a sad scene where she has to be sad. And she sells it. I've seen that scene 100 times. I feel weepy every single time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's her little idea to do what she does. Oh my God, she was just amazing. And it was I've been telling her mom, and so I hadn't seen her when she came in to shoot that scene. I hadn't seen her for probably 6 months. And I bent down and she came running up into my arms and I gave her a big hug. And her mom says, do you know who that is? She said, that's the PetSmart lady.
Well, that's better than that's the cat wipe lady.
Yeah, I know. And she's like, yeah. And none of us could, but she was like, I don't know, 4 or she's just a little thing.
Right. Yeah.
And when I saw her at the premiere and I told her mom after all of this, and especially after I'd seen the scenes, I'm like, you need to get her an agent. And here I said, this is the biggest kids agent in town. This is my agent. I will give a recommendation to either one. I said, you have to submit, because all I can do is just say, look, she's great. I've worked with her. But you have to do the submission. And anyway, so her mom was going to do it. And there was one thing, they weren't going to go with the one they wanted to talk to my agent. And, after they came to the premiere, she was like, you're right. I have to do this. I said, yeah, you really do, because she's amazing.
Well, once you actually, once you actually see it on screen, especially, like on a large screen, you get the reality of it. Everything else is your imagination of, oh, that's, cute. She's going to be in a movie, my kid. And, you tell your friends and whatever. But when you see the reality of that, like the first time I heard my music in a theater,
right.
It just brings a whole nother level of depth to the reality of what's possible.
Right.
And the thing is too, and I want to tell everybody, if you're thinking about getting your child into this, or your even yourself, always vet the people that are approaching you in PetSmart or other places.
Exactly.
Because obviously I can go on IMDb and I can look you up and I can look Rusty up and I can see that you guys have done projects. You're real people. I can ask around. You're legitimate. But there are so many people that would come up to you and force create a seemingly random situation like that. So always vet the people that you're going to work with before you work with them.
Right. And to be fair, just know that I gave her all of that information to vet me.
Right.
But I gave her my website. I gave her my IMDb. I gave her all of that stuff. I said, this is crazy. I know. This is, my name. This is my husband's name. Look us up. Check us out. This is the company name. This is who's doing the movie. I said, I know this is a weird thing. And, I don't do this every day, but we need her. So
Yeah. It depends on the voice you use too. It's like that meme of the font that says "You're mine now" or something.
Yeah.
It's like this happy little thing, and then there's the bloody.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is important. I mean, and you can create a website. You can fake a website very easily. But what you can't do is you cannot very easily fake an IMDb entry.
Right, exactly.
That is vetted. That's already, if you're there and you can verify that that is the same person, you're pretty safe to say that, okay, this is something legitimate, because IMDb is a great gatekeeper.
Yes, yeah, they are. And, I mean, you can't, or even the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers Group. That's a meetup group with over 2,600 members. I might be able to, I mean, I don't know, maybe I could create the group, but my picture's right there as the organizer. And 2,600 members, I mean, I would have to also create all of their websites and you know what I mean? So it would be I would have had to do that. I'm just not that good. I could barely make the meetup page. So
That's amazing though, how much that's grown, and kudos to you for not just creating it but sticking with it. And like I said, I mean, you think about the times when we were excited we got to 100 or we got to 225, and
I know,
wow, this has gotten so big, and it's 10 times that now.
Well, and what's so gratifying is, like, I look at the members who came up with us and all the stuff that they're doing. Like, look at Mike Butler, right? And all the movies. I don't know if you've seen him on Facebook. He's just, kicking ass and taking names. And Ita, and he's doing this whole series of his teaching, his teaching videos and all that stuff, and all the stuff that he's doing. And just so many people, it's like so many people that started out with us are just out there making it happen. Annie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stephen Christic, right? All those guys, the Simple Human folks there. All of that, Synthetic Human.
Synthetic Human,
yeah. All of these people who we all started out with, just going nuts. Brenton Covington, Austin Nordell, right? Austin was our DP on Girl Wired and also on You're All Gonna Die. And it's like all of these people are just, we all started together, and now they're all out there just making it happen, and it's just so gratifying to me.
And a lot of those people we were in the trenches with doing all those 48-hour film challenges.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that you do those for is to find people that you want to work with when you get the bigger projects. Right. And there were so many amazingly talented people that gave so much of themselves, didn't complain, didn't, said, well, I'm going to have to leave at 2. So if you're going to shoot me, you better shoot me before then. I mean, I committed to this, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. And those are the people that have become so successful, because they're the kind of people that are willing to go to the hilt to make a project work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, think of how many people wouldn't have had, because so many people don't get involved in things because they don't have resources. I wanted to be a film composer years before I actually became one, because I didn't know where to go to start. And it really wasn't until I met you at one of those 48-hour challenge meetup type things.
And I claimed that.
You were just, you're a composer, you're with us. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I remember I was about ready to leave. I was just saying goodbye to the host that invited me. And while I was waiting for him to get freed up from his conversation, that's when you and I met. But before that, it was like I had, it'd been like 5 or 6 years, and I had no resources, and I happened to stumble across him and worked with him on my first film, and then met you, and then it just took off from there, because then you had this group, and we had projects lined up, and when we didn't have one, we created one. And, so if it wasn't for you, a lot of people would not have had the resources to be in this business. And I don't know if you ever really take stock of what you've accomplished. I mean, you can look at the numbers and go, there's over 2,000 people. That's great. But think about how many people like Stephen and Annie and all these people that wouldn't necessarily have found the people to connect with to be where they are now had it not been for the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers Group, i.e. you.
Well, it does make me feel good It makes me feel good when any of our members are out there just kicking it.
Yeah.
It's like, because, I look where we all started. I mean, look at the first little campaign promises. That's little Mikey Butler.
Yep. That's right.
And you composed, you composed for every single one, I think, that we did.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Well, there was one, I think, the mating game that Benji Messer composed, and I did sound design on that
couldn't. One. Right. You couldn't do that one because you were, I think you abandoned me for some other group.
I think I had another project going at the time, and then, but I could do, and I kind of wanted to step back too, because I was doing all the challenges, and there were other composers in the group that weren't getting the opportunity.
Yeah.
So we had Benji do that one, and then I did the sound design for it, and I was able to be on set for that day, which was something I didn't really get to do.
Yeah, that was fun, and that was a fun one. Jay was just.
Oh, yeah.
He would just let me and Sarah and all of us that were doing that just go on and on and on and just laugh his ass off until finally we'd be like, are you going to cut?
Right, yeah. And ironically, we had somebody that was visiting us at the project that was actually speed dating while we were doing a movie about speed dating.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So that was just another little level of irony that I enjoyed quite a bit. But we've done a lot of great projects together. I'm really excited for Girl Wired. I hope that the sale closes soon and that it gets the distribution fairly quickly so that people can enjoy it. I loved the script. I'm sure it's been revised several times since the last version I read a few years ago. But I know what a charming story it is, and I know what a long time in coming it is for this film to be made. So I'm glad it's finally getting out there. Congratulations to you and Rusty and Tony and everybody that worked on it. It's I'm hoping for great success for you guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you'll come back and see us?
Yes, of course.
Yay.
You can't get rid of me.
Nope, I wouldn't want to.
I told you that day that I claimed your ass for the 2 shows, even though you thought you were only going to have to do 1.
Yeah.
Back-to-back weekends. Mm-hmm. That was that. Then you're just ours now. So that's that.
And there's I don't think I did anything on Campaign Promise, but The Handlers was the one that we did the second weekend.
Yes.
And in my book, Becoming an Indie Film Composer, there's a couple of stories about that process in there that I have some fond memories of. But yeah, we've had a lot of great projects over the years and a lot of good times, and we didn't even get to talk about the audiobooks and other stuff we've done together. So,
oh my gosh, I know, that's the next time then.
Yes, we'll hit that next time. In fact, one of them was for Jeff Marriott. 2 of them were for Jeff Marriott, who I had on the show, I think in December sometime. Another great guy.
Yes, he is a fantastic author. I highly recommend his books. And if you love audiobooks, make sure you get the ones that we did.
That's right, which were Cold Black Hearts and Devil's Bait.
Yes.
Good times. Well, thank you for taking some time out of your crazy schedule to come hang out with me a little bit. And I'm sure our audience has enjoyed our conversation and learned some cool tips and tricks. And definitely come back and see us.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tammy. Come back again.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I'm very excited about Girl Wired. It's a beautiful story, very well written by Tony D'Alessio, and can't wait to see the film, and I wish them great success. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Haskincast podcast. I'll be back next week with another guest, and we're going to take things in a little bit different of a direction next week. Still something I consider part of the entertainment industry, but it's not really explored. I don't think I've heard of too many podcasts that go over this topic with this group of people, and I want to talk to a couple people in the industry because I find it a little fascinating. So tune in next week. In the meantime, please leave a like, a review if you like, follow, subscribe, whatever you like through any of the various outlets, and we'll see you next week.